This is Larry King. Welcome to CNN Millennium 2000. This New Year's, see more, experience more, know more. Be a part of history in the making. CNN brings you the world at 2000, hour by hour, moment by moment, as a new century and a new millennium unfold. We'll bring you the first moment of the new millennium from Kiribati in the Pacific, and then we'll follow midnight around the world, from Auckland, New Zealand, to the South Pole, to the Fiji Islands, Australia, Tokyo, Beijing, New Delhi, Red Square, the Egyptian pyramids, Jerusalem, Johannesburg, Rome, Paris, Lagos, Nigeria, Rio de Janeiro, and across the United States, from Times Square to Chicago, across the Midwest and the South, to Texas, Los Angeles, Honolulu, with more than 50 CNN correspondents, including Wolf Blitzer, Christian Amanpour, Jim Moret, Brent Sadler, Jim Bitterman, Charlene Hunter-Gault, Rebecca McKinnon, Fred Hickman, Candy Crowley, John King. As the clock strikes midnight around the world, we'll be there to bring you the celebrations and the spectacles. Join CNN to ring in the new year, the new century, and the new millennium. Spend New Year 2000 with the world.
This is Friday, December 31st, the last day of 1999, and we are now on the eve of a new year and of a new century.
That's right, and CNN is bringing you the most extensive coverage possible. 60 correspondents and hundreds behind the cameras are set to bring it to you live, as only CNN can do.
That's right, so hold on tight, folks. We're going to take you all around the globe, sweeping across all 25 time zones. The first people to ring in the year 2000 on Earth are on Kiribati Island in the South Pacific. Now, to mark this occasion, part of the area has been renamed Millennium Island. It used to be Caroline Island. Now it is Millennium Island. Ceremonies with tribal dancing and music and a lot of chanting will usher in the new year there. It's a major undertaking for the island because it's normally unpopulated.
They actually changed the way the date line goes through that group of islands, actually extended it out to include Millennium Island so that they could lay claim to being one of the first places to see the new millennium. And you're actually looking at live pictures now from the Kiribati Islands, where 70 performers have traveled for some 3 weeks, some of them even coming by canoes to get to this island called Millennium Island for the celebrations that you're looking at now. It's the Micronesian celebration of hope. You're looking at a very traditional celebration going on there. That's one of the wonderful things about our coverage. You're going to see things that are very traditional like this, very modern. This is an ancient ceremony going on Millennium Island by the Micronesian people who live there. The Micronesians are from the very small islands in this Pacific area. The claps are part of their chant, and the song that they're singing is a song asking for unity in the new millennium.
And they apparently have it, because they are now unified, and they're all together dancing and chanting, and it is now 2000, January 1st, the year 2000, on the island of Kiribati. And you're now seeing the pictures there, the first pictures of the millennium.
All right, and now we want to take you to another region. This is a region actually of New Zealand, about 800 kilometers south of New Zealand, to the Chatham Islands, where millennium celebrations are about to get underway, and our Mike Chinoy is there.
This is Mike Chinoy on New Zealand's Chatham Islands, 800 kilometers out in the South Pacific Ocean. Let's listen and watch.
show you some of the pictures that we're getting in from New Zealand. Another one of these Millennium marriages. We're seeing couples on the islands there in that part of the ocean, in that part of the world, all racing to be the first married couples of the new millennium. There you're seeing a couple tying the knot in Auckland, New Zealand.
No better way to do it.
We're starting to see some fireworks now as well that are starting to light up the sky. This is the largest fireworks display ever in New Zealand. Each one of these shells that you see weighs about 70 kilos and is about 24 inches long. There was some concern that we wouldn't be able to see some of the higher fireworks here because of the cloud cover. It has been raining in New Zealand most of the day, but as you can see, the sky is definitely illuminated in Auckland as the year 2000 has arrived.
You are watching an incredible fireworks display to usher in the new millennium in New Zealand's largest city and its largest port.
It is Tom Mintier standing by in Auckland, New Zealand, and we believe that we may have an announcement or two coming from down there. Tom, what's going on?
We do, Leon. I do have the stork report for you. At 1 minute after midnight, the first child was born, and about 14 minutes later, the second. The first being a boy born here in Auckland, in West Auckland in the hospital. Mother and son doing fine. 14 minutes later, a baby girl was born in Christchurch, New Zealand. Mother and daughter both doing fine.
2000 falls on a midsummer's night in Sydney, although it is a bit cool and windy there.
Well, Sydney greets the new year with a $3.5 million fireworks display. That should warm things up. And that's going to be launched from the Harbour Bridge and the Opera House. And CNN's Michael Holmes is in Sydney and joins us now live. Michael?
You're looking at a beautiful picture there, Colleen, of the Opera House and the Sydney Harbour Bridge. It's ironic, you know, that the Opera House now considered one of Australia's icons. And the first of the fireworks have begun. Magnificent. In Sydney, Australia. A magnificent fireworks display underway here. It will continue for 23 minutes and will cost some $3.5 million. They're claiming it's going to be the biggest fireworks display on Earth. And you can see in your picture there even the Opera House taking part. It's the first and only time the Opera House will be used to launch fireworks. Largest fireworks display ever seen in Australia, and they say around the world. It covers 7 kilometres from east to west. There's something like 6 barges out there firing fireworks, all fired by a central computer, which, now that it's after midnight, we assume is Y2K compliant. The largest burst, by the way, is a 16-inch shell which will shoot more than 1 kilometre into the sky. 20 tons of fireworks set off to mark the new century.
Unfolding in Sydney. The fireworks are on, as you can see, and they're playing a medley of music, most of it modern from the 20th century, and most of it from America.
Look at that vantage shot from apparently it's a helicopter shot they got above the fireworks. Incredible shot there.
Well, may we say, God save the Queen. When my baby smiles at me, I go to Rio. I wanna
Sydney, Australia, as an enormous firework goes off there, brings in the new Millennium. It's a magnificent display, as you can see. The man who designed this fireworks display, by the way, is the man who designed the opening and closing ceremonies for the Los Angeles and Barcelona Olympics. His name is Rick Birch. He'll also be doing the Sydney Olympics this year. That'll be in September. The crowds around the harbour, they are going crazy here. There's all the oohing and ahhing that Tom Mintier referred to from Auckland just an hour or two ago. Lots of cheering. People are setting off their own firecrackers as well, hardly competing with what you're seeing now. 20 tons of fireworks going up over Sydney Harbour right now. The smiley face on the bridge there was brought in last year. Later we will see the word eternity. You know, I've been looking around the crowd, the traditional New Year's hugging and kissing. Nobody's doing it. They're all watching the fireworks. You know, a major credit card company did a survey in Europe of Europeans, a rather large survey, and found that the place most Europeans wanted to spend this moment was right here in Sydney, Australia. And there are a lot of visitors here. You know, Another interesting fact is that there are a lot of people, some several hundred, who will watch tonight's magnificent fireworks display here in Sydney and get on a plane in a few hours and fly to Hawaii, where they will cross the international date line and get to do it all over again. We're now awaiting the largest firework of all, this massive 16-inch shell, which we're told will spread fireworks over 400 meters. Absolutely enormous, and it should be going off any minute now. And it was indeed huge. Just to give you a sense of how big this current display is, the harbour bridge is 1 kilometre wide, and look at it, completely lit up. A 1 kilometre wide shower of fireworks. And just as a sidebar, I can report, as Tom Mintier did from Auckland, that it is now nearly 25 minutes past midnight here in Sydney. There's probably a dozen buildings in the city too, which you may or may not be able to see at the moment, that are all shooting fireworks at the moment. Very spectacular. The whole display is probably covering something like 7 miles by my reckoning. Magnificent.
It is less than 2 minutes until midnight in much of East Asia, where some of the 20th century's most productive economies and bitterest rivals will pause for the new millennium.
CNN's coverage takes us live to Japan and South Korea for the countdown to 2000.
We'll be in Tokyo for a religious ceremony that will literally ring in the new year, and the new century begins over a divided Korea. We'll go live to Seoul. And the dawn of the new millennium goes across Asia now. You're seeing pictures live, both from Tokyo and from Seoul, South Korea. We'll be visiting both cities as our coverage continues. Right now, we're following the dawn of the new millennium in Tokyo, and we bring in our Tokyo bureau chief. That is Marina Kamimura. She's been covering the story for us, and she joins us now with more. Marina.
The lights have just been dimmed here on the grounds of Zojoji Temple. Now that we're into the final seconds of 1999 here in Japan, you can hear the crowd getting extremely excited. They've got 5,000 clear balloons prepared here with wishes attached for what they want to come true in the new millennium. Here comes the countdown now. Let's listen in. And there you have it, the new year in Tokyo. Akimashite omedetou gozaimasu, as they say here in Japanese, or Happy New Year from Japan. What you just heard was the ringing of a massive bell. As you can see behind me now, Tokyo Tower is also lit in some brilliant colors. It's got a 2000 sign on it, a 2000 sign also adorning the main temple of Zojoji Temple here. You can see the balloons heading off into the atmosphere. 5,000 balloons were prepared for this occasion. They're clear plastic balloons that we're told are friendly for the atmosphere, and as I said, they're containing these little messages, personal wishes from the Japanese who set them off. We spoke to some people earlier on. Some said they were simply wishing for good entrance exams, good results for entrance exams next year. Others, of course, making wishes for better prosperity, better times for the Japanese economy, which, as you know, has been going through some difficult times. In any case, absolute excitement here as Japan welcomes the new millennium.
Marina Kamamura covering the story for us in Tokyo. We'll ask you to stand by as that party goes on. And now for another part of Asia, here's Jim.
Well, we want to go straight across the Sea of Japan to South Korea. Take a look at some of the live pictures that are coming into us there. Of course, Korea's the first baby born in Seoul is now being displayed on the television feed from there. And we don't know what the name of this child is yet, but all around the world we're hearing these reports of first babies. There have been street celebrations as well, but I'm sure for the parents of this little boy or little girl that there's no celebration greater than the one that's going to be in their arms this day. And look at that. But we saw President Kim Dae-jung there presiding over the festivities. Fireworks and cheers from thousands upon thousands of people that lined the streets in Seoul. And then we heard Korea had its first millennium baby. Even saw some live pictures of that when we were able to get to them because we were in Tokyo looking at events there. And that is how it went at the stroke of midnight in Seoul, South Korea. Let's take a closer look now at what's going on in Beijing. Just a few moments ago, we saw President Jiang Zemin greeting people there outside the Millennium Tower. You can see the shower of fireworks, and we want to bring in now CNN's Beijing Bureau Chief Rebecca McKinnon for the latest. Rebecca, can you hear me?
A massive song and dance extravaganza is underway at the same time as a massive fireworks display. Right at the stroke of midnight, Chinese President Jiang Zemin lit a flame. It's going to be kept lit supposedly eternally. It's called the eternal flame of the Chinese people, and it's meant to represent 5,000 years, nearly 5,000 years of continuous Chinese civilization. It was very interesting during Chinese President Jiang Zemin's speech. He reminded the Chinese people and the world that a millennium ago, 1,000 years ago, China was in fact the most advanced civilization on Earth. He mentioned that China fell behind in the latter part of this past millennium. It was surpassed technologically and in other ways by Western countries. But he said that under the guidance of the Chinese Communist Party, thanks to the Communist Revolution under Chairman Mao Zedong 50 years ago, he said that he was fully confident that China would rise again. This entire ceremony is full of nationalistic themes. It is showing Chinese pride in their very long culture. One other theme that is very prevalent during this ceremony are dragons. The coming year, which in February of this coming year, there will be the Chinese New Year, which will mark the beginning of the Year of the Dragon. Now, the Year of the Dragon comes every 12 years, and it is considered by Chinese lore to be a very special year, but also, in many cases, a turbulent year. 12 years ago was in 1988. There were massive student demonstrations very soon after. 24 years ago, 2 dragon years ago, marked the death of Chinese Chairman Mao Zedong, and a major upheaval and also a major earthquake killing hundreds of thousands of people. So in many ways, China is entering the millennium full of hope, both for its country and also for the coming year, and hoping that it will be a lucky year. He's saying that the ceremonies are now officially over, and the Chinese leaders will be leaving the scene as the crowds here cheer them on.
CNN's Beijing Bureau Chief Rebecca McKinnon there. Quite a celebration on in Beijing, a celebration as well in Hong Kong. Let's go there now and take a look at the festivities. CNN's Karuna Shinsho is standing by to give us the latest with a look at the harbor and the celebrations underway.
That is right, Jim. You're looking at the famous Hong Kong skyline. It's about, a minute past the midnight hour, and it is now officially the new year here in Hong Kong. Authorities here were saying that they were expecting about 1.2 million people to be out on the streets tonight. Out here on the promenade in front of the skyline, there are thousands of people milling around. And we are now going to the Happy Valley Race Course, I believe, which is the official event the Hong Kong government has put on here. And you are seeing Jackie Chan, I believe, actor Jackie Chan, flying in to the stage right now. And we are now back to the skyline here. As I was mentioning earlier, they're expecting over 1 million people to be out here. Thousands are about here, and earlier when the clock hit the hour, there are lots of cheers out here, and obviously, as Rebecca was mentioning earlier, there's a sense of optimism and sense of hope here that perhaps the year 2000 will be a good year for everyone here.
You're looking at live pictures from Bangkok, Thailand, and it is also midnight in Jakarta, Indonesia, two spots in the world that are now celebrating a new millennium.
Wherever you are, ready to
In other parts of the world, in addition to Thailand, they are celebrating midnight right now. Let's go live to Jakarta, Indonesia. Indonesia, we should note, is the world's largest Muslim nation, so this isn't New Year's there either. We're in the 9th month of the Muslim calendar, Ramadan. So one thing religious authorities in Indonesia have been careful to remind people is to keep their mind on this as a holy time, not just a party time, but it looks from this image that the partiers are winning in this corner of Indonesia at least.
It is the world's largest democracy with nearly 1 billion residents. The new century starts in India in less than 4 minutes. And CNN takes you there as Millennium 2000 moves across the rapidly growing subcontinent.
Everything is perked up. Here in New Delhi, thousands of people out in the streets, and everywhere that you can see, there is a new edge, there is a new festivity. We are now waiting, and in just about a minute, the world's largest democracy, home to 1 billion people, that's 1 in 6 people in the world, will usher in the new year, the new millennium.
It is a dramatic time in Moscow. You see Red Square celebrating this moment. The fireworks in the less than 20 seconds now to midnight in Moscow. It has been a day of dramatic events. In terms of the Moscow government, we're not even sure how much of Russia knows what has happened to its leadership in the course of this day. Let's watch the final seconds now to midnight. Expected to turn out as you see the fireworks, the pyrotechnics going off throughout the area around Red Square there in Moscow. A great celebration. This is the area that is the traditional celebration point for events in Moscow. But this is also a dramatic day in terms of events for that city and for the country.
It's been an extraordinarily dramatic day, a change of government. In fact, Boris Yeltsin decided to close out the 20th century by closing out his presidency and passing the reins to a younger and more a vital leader, at least in an interim basis, on an acting basis, apparently counting on the fact for some political momentum to carry him, Mr. Putin, into the 21st century. Elections within 90 days.
Vladimir Putin, the president, Mr. Yeltsin's hand-selected prime minister and now successor. There has been great debate about Mr. Putin's future. The elections were originally expected in June, but they will be moved up now to 3 months. And since Mr. Yeltsin did select Mr. Putin himself, it does put him in the catbird seat going into that time.
And for those who watch these events and for those who watch Russia and Moscow and such things, this becomes a truly, truly transitional moment in this country. It is far more than just these fireworks we're seeing, Joey. It is really about the direction of the nation.
Pilgrims from all over the world are gathering in Jerusalem and in Bethlehem. Egypt will use the Millennium celebrations to show off its pyramids, gold pyramids in a new light.
And new freedom will be on display as South Africa looks with hope away from a century of apartheid and toward a century of equality. All of that's coming up as our coverage of Millennium 2000 continues right now. And here you see in your split screen Bethlehem, Giza, Egypt, the site of the Great Pyramids, and South Africa, all of which are preparing to usher in the new year.
You see the excitement at Giza now, this huge celebration, a spectacular showing of lights and fireworks, pyrotechnics there. We'll see more in a moment.
Let us watch this. You know, part of this show, 2,000 school children will be entering this site, each with a candle, each to mark a year.
And there it is. Had a little problem in Giza with the weather, but you can see parked right in the center of your screen the Sphinx, the standing figure of the ages against these modern lights and this modern show.
And let me tell you what the Egyptians had to say when they issued invitations to this event. If you were lucky enough to receive one in the mail, it said, "Caesar stood here, so did Napoleon. It's the sole surviving member of the 7 wonders of the world, and now you and your friends can greet the year 2000 as the sun rises up out of the African desert and 7 millennia of Egyptian history."
Looking down to another picture, another scene where history has been so much a part of the community, that would be Bethlehem. In the lower part of the screen there, you see the celebration started out subdued and actually fairly political in Bethlehem earlier in the evening, but has now launched into full celebration and excitement, marking this historic occasion.
It will culminate with the release of 2,000 doves, one for each year, in great hopes for peace. And in fact, the Middle East is at a very dramatic moment. On the threshold of peace are the hopes of those who live and work in this region, as the Israelis and the Syrians will mark the new year, January 3rd, as a matter of fact, by gathering in Washington, just outside of Washington, actually, to start some very dramatic peace talks. Joey, in Manger Square as well, the celebrations are going to include a special performance for Ramadan, short Palestinian films, and 100 strong children's choir, which will sing an ode to religious tolerance. That is a message the world very much wants to hear.
It certainly is a balancing act, Frank, for Bethlehem to engage all the different faith and culture that comes together in this particular community. Of course, we know that this is the end of Ramadan, and so for the Muslim faith, an important holiday. But of course, this is also the Jewish Sabbath. And so there had been a great deal of concern about the level of celebration.
And it is midnight in Bethlehem, as you see, and the year 2000 has arrived. The Gregorian calendar, and Walt Rogers is right there. Walter?
Frank, it was been an amazing night here. The fireworks are still resounding through the air in Bethlehem's Manger Square. But at the very same time, and just a few moments ago, the Palestinians released 2,000 doves, white pigeons, symbols of peace, into the air. At the same time, they were setting off fireworks. Still, perhaps these doves were sent out as symbols of peace. The doves prefigure perhaps a new Middle East. Bill Delaney is down on the square here in Manger Square in Bethlehem. Bill, what's it like in the crowd?
I don't know if you can hear me there. Maybe I think we just kicked in there. This is Bill Delaney in venerable Manger Square. It's never quite seen a night like this. As we move into the year 2000, the strains of Beethoven's Ninth mingling with this cataclysm of firecrackers that has been blasting over our heads. Otherwise, very much a subdued crowd. They're looking up at the firecrackers. This has been a long night of a lot of speeches, a lot of politics intermingled with the celebrations here tonight. And as we look out across the crowd, you know, one thing you think is this is such a very old place. As I said, this night of celebration also laced throughout with politics, now turning much more to festivity than what we've seen all night. Go back up to you, Walter Rogers, in the municipality just above my head. Walter?
Thanks, Bill. You can hear the strains of Beethoven's Ode to Joy, the Night Symphony, floating through Bethlehem's Manger Square, intermingled with the fireworks. Perhaps that's a bit of Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture. The fireworks have been blasting for over 5 minutes now. The fireworks have been blasting over 5 minutes now over the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem's Manger Square. Perhaps a little risky. That church has had roof fires before, but perhaps tonight we'll be blessed with good fortune. It is certainly a joyous event here in Bethlehem, the cradle of the millennium, the birthplace of the millennium, the fireworks being ignited over the Church of the Nativity, a 4th century church built in the reign of the Emperor Constantine over the traditional site of Jesus' birthplace. Frank?
Walter and Joey, you know, after all the concern that's been expressed about security, about Y2K, you're struck when you see this, that this really is an ode to joy. Yeah. It really is a moment to celebrate and to ponder what the future may hold. As Walter pointed out, prospects for peace, clearly the hopes of those who are gathered there very much hinge on a better tomorrow.
Yes, and if you think about the words that ode to joy, let each man in every nation live in peace and brotherhood. And I think they are attempting that tonight, God's notwithstanding. Let's go now, as you see in the upper part of your screen, to Giza, the Great Pyramids there. And you see the celebration. This is a, let's see, dusk to dawn celebration at the pyramids with the music of the French composer Jean-Michel Jarre, who had developed this all-night program of music, song, involving hundreds of children, thousands of children.
The 12 Dreams of the Sun called this, with each act culminating at a point of midnight, at a point of the new year being ushered in somewhere in the world.
And of course, the pyramids are associated in their construction with the sun, the important god to the Egyptians, the sun god Ra. Also an important inspiration for Jean-Michel Jarre as he developed this particular composition for this event, a dramatic one that is said to draw some 50,000 people to the Giza Plateau.
And Joey, there had been talk, very, very serious talk, of a helicopter coming in and placing a golden cap on the Great Pyramid just as midnight approached. Now that was scrapped because these are precious relics, wonders of the world, and there was great concern that that could cause damage to the structure.
This is one of the 3 main events of the world that international travelers wanted to go to for the millennium.
Well, you can certainly see why, and the light show that is promised up against the pyramids is something that we have yet to see here. But clearly, the significance of these structures, the ancient civilization that emanated from Egypt itself, the fact that Egypt is celebrating its 7th millennium as the world marking on the Gregorian calendar celebrates the year 2000, it makes this a key location. And we should remember, not everybody's calendar, at least culturally and religiously, is tuned into the year 2000 and where the Gregorian calendar sits. For the Jewish calendar, it's another 240 years. This is before another millennium strikes. It's 5760 on the Jewish calendar. Muslim calendar, it's the year 1420.
And there are, of course, different New Years celebrated, marked by each of those cultures. We want to move over now to another part of the world, to Pretoria in South Africa. The celebration underway there. There's been a big celebration by Cape Town at Robben Island, which, of course, has great significance to the South African leadership, to Mr. Mandela, of course, to Thabo Mbeki as well. both who were held as political prisoners at Robben Island for many, many years themselves. This really is an event which marks South Africa's emergence, trying to emerge into an African millennium, one that has been emphasized by the leadership of South Africa in its planning for this particular millennium celebration. CNN's Charlene Hunter-Gault is following events in Johannesburg now. She joins us from there. Charlene.
Hello to everybody and Happy New Year. It's raining here in Johannesburg, but in Africa, rain is a very good sign. And indeed, we have seen tonight Nelson Mandela, the man who represents the greatest hope for South Africa, who has represented the greatest hope for South Africa in the future, celebrating the coming millennium in the very place where he stayed for so many years, 18 years, as a prisoner of conscience, trying to liberate his people. Tonight he joined, I'm told, some 10,000 people on Robben Island to commemorate what has gone on in the past and to look forward with the new president of South Africa, Thabo Mbeki. They passed a symbolic torch, a lighted candle, President Mandela to President Mbeki, to symbolize what President Mbeki has called the coming of the African century, the African Renaissance.
We're looking at 4 very historic places there: Paris, Berlin, Rome, Lagos, Nigeria.
3 of the great capitals of Europe, the City of Lights, Berlin, as we said, the Brandenburg Gate, the center of celebrations there, and again at St. Peter's Square, looking at the thousands who have thronged there. Also, though, this hour, we're going to look at Lagos, Nigeria. We want to move on now to Paris, elsewhere, one of the other great capitals of Europe. Paris, where there has been a little bit of a problem on the Champs-Élysées, but of course the Parisians had style and must have some way to handle the little clock problem. CNN's Jim Bitterman is there to explain it to us. Jim.
Joey, absolutely true. The big clock over on the Eiffel Tower has stopped this evening just 5 hours before midnight after successfully counting down for more than 1,000 days. Just 5 hours before midnight it stopped. I'm speaking to you, as you mentioned, from the Avenue des Champs-Élysées, where all the celebrations are going to be taking place this evening. In fact, I'm speaking from the very building where Thomas Jefferson, who back then was an American diplomat in Paris, passed his first New Year's 211 years ago in Paris. It's also, if we can get the camera to take a picture down the street here, you may just be able to see off in the distance beyond the Ferris wheels there, the Louvre Museum, which back then was called the Tuileries Palace, where kings and emperors from Philippe Auguste to Napoleon III passed their New Year's. This has always been the avenue where the French have come to celebrate, even if tonight's celebrations are a bit low-key. Fireworks will slowly climb up the side of the Eiffel Tower, being launched from 8,000 different positions along the sides of the Eiffel Tower.
Sort of think of this as a shuttle launch with warm up and then blast off. And in Rome, they're waiting too with anticipation, counting down.
Counting down at Rome as well for the Pope's Urbi et Orbi message, the message of the Pope to the city and to the world as well. There you see a square at St. Peter's. See some of the fireworks in the background. Rome, a city which has undergone a major renovation.
Also in Berlin, midnight is nigh. That from the Brandenburg Gate and elsewhere. The Brandenburg Gate, not far from where Ronald Reagan said once upon a time, not very many years ago, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And that, too, changed history. There you see the Brandenburg Gate, which stands for so much and speaks so loudly about this period of world history we're in and entering now.
It's coming up on a minute before midnight here, and we're looking at the great celebrations, one at Rome, one at Paris. Of course, the Paris one seems to be contained with the great pyrotechnics. As Jim Bitterman told us, they say that the Eiffel Tower will rock, or it looks like it's at least going to dance as this thing. It looks like it's going to take off. And in fact, I understand that the fireworks have been pointed downward, aimed downward, in an attempt to make it look as though this is, in fact, a rocket ship.
Well, you know, Joey, we heard Jim Bitterman talking about the mountain climbers. In fact, they had mountain climbers carrying 20,000 light bulbs, scaling that thing to wire this up. 800 strings of lights, 20,000 firework launches over this monument. So what you're seeing here is a warm-up of what is going to be a very dramatic millennial act.
And the clock doesn't work, but I don't think it matters at this point.
Ours does.
Ours does. It's 22 minutes to midnight. I don't know if the folks in Paris can see our clock. but their clock on the Tour de France does not work at this point, probably caused by the weather problems they had earlier in the week.
And down in the left-hand side of your screen, you see a picture of St. Peter's Square there, where the Pope, as you mentioned, Joey, is going to be talking to those assembled and the world, offering his vision of the new century and the new millennium.
An important message to hear from the Pope, particularly.
There goes the Eiffel Tower.
There we go.
Let's watch.
Appearing before the massed crowds there at St. Peter's Square, giving brief messages, Urbi et Orbi message, one he gives every year at this time. But you are also looking as well the celebration in Paris. We're trying to show you both of these major events happening at the same time, of course, as midnight comes to Western Europe, both in Paris and in Rome, as well as in Berlin, which we'll see in a moment, the excitement there. But this, at the City of Lights, is quite a visual demonstration. This is a relatively shorter message that the Pope will give. He will give another one at dawn at the Vatican, at Vatican City, as well, laying out further his thoughts and his prayers and his hopes for the new millennium as well.
Mi piacerebbe bussare alla porta delle vostre case per recare a ciascuno il mio augurio cordiale. Buon anno a tutti.
And this Polish-born pontiff, who himself has seen so much change and so much upheaval in his lifetime, from World War II and the tumult, turmoil that racked his native land of Poland, right on through the communist period, and solidarity, which he encouraged from the sidelines, which the Catholic Church was so instrumental in supporting. Finally, Poland throwing off the yoke of communism along with the rest of Eastern Europe. And now, Joey, to Madrid as our tour continues. It's pretty good. You don't have to pay for it. We'll take you all over Europe and the world. This is the Puerta del Sol Plaza, which is considered the center, the geographic center of this wonderful city of Madrid, as they commemorate midnight there as well with fireworks. And I think we could say it literally, a star-studded cast.
Stars over the skies there in Spain. I want to move a little bit further south to Lagos in Nigeria. Something of a dance party underway in Lagos. This is a square in the capital, well, in the traditional capital of Nigeria, which is Lagos. The country now has an official capital at Abuja, but this is a ceremony in the place where Nigerians have traditionally gone to celebrate and share their joy. This has been, of course, an interesting political year for Nigeria.
A rich and culturally diverse society in its own right, about 114 million people or so, and religiously divided, about 50% Muslim in this country, 40% Christian, 10% indigenous beliefs.
CNN's Jim Bitterman is out on the street. I can't imagine, Jim, that the party could be over.
The party is not over by any means. In fact, Joey, no, the party looks like it's just beginning. In fact, what's happened here is that I think a lot of people who were over at the Eiffel Tower, which is about a mile from here, over at the Eiffel Tower for the big fireworks display, have now gravitated in this direction and now filling in the Champs-Élysées. There's going to be celebrations all throughout the night here, and they're going to move tomorrow. There's going to be a rather major parade that starts about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, involving about 5,000 people parading through the streets and the boulevards of Paris. So it is a weekend here of action in Paris. I think maybe perhaps raising French spirits after the week that they've been through, after these terrible storms that have swept through Paris. Frank?
All right, Jim Bitterman in Paris. We want to take you to Berlin now, and Bettina Luzier, who's there for us. Bettina?
Amazing pictures here at the Berlin-Brandenburg Gate. This old symbol of the division of Europe, a symbol of the Cold War tonight. It is a place of celebration as the Germans are looking forward to a new century, a century that they hope will be peaceful. The Brandenburg Gate was, of course, in the old east of Berlin. At the other side of the 4.5 kilometer long street party is the Victory Column, and all in between are hundreds of thousands of people. And they are celebrating that the century is over. They're looking with optimism to the future. But when you talk to the people, they mainly say that they hope for health and for peace. Joey, Frank?
CNN's Bettina Luzier reporting to us from Berlin. The festivities there underway, inaugurating a new Germany, a new century for Germany as well.
Indeed. A welcome new century. And we're about 30 minutes away from midnight Greenwich Mean Time, which means 30 minutes away from midnight in London, England.
Greenwich Mean Time, where we are right now, is the Greenwich Meridian, considers itself the arbiter of universal time, and as such considers the Millennium will not start officially until it starts here. With that in mind, the British over the last few years have been determined to make the biggest and the best splash for the Millennium, and the centerpiece of their party is the dome, the Millennium Dome, where we are right now. This incredible structure, which you can see from our overhead camera, but it has taken many, many months, almost a year to build. It's supported by these 12 huge pylons. It's an enormous, the world's biggest roofed structure, twice the size of the Georgia Dome in Atlanta, which until now was the biggest roof structure. The tidbits say that it can contain the Great Pyramid of Giza, the Eiffel Tower on its side, and indeed 18,000 of those red double-decker buses. That huge material that covers it spans about 50 meters, and it can even move, if there is a hurricane, it can move about 3 feet higher to accommodate any high winds. Now, you're watching the London Beacon, which has already been illuminated by the Queen. She sort of flipped a laser switch, if you like, from a barge on the river, and that has triggered the lighting of that beacon. After this beacon is lit, and it's huge, really very wide and very tall, this beacon, 3,000 or so around England, Scotland, Wales will also be lit. So this is really the beacon, a theme, if you like, of the Millennium celebrations here in England. We've heard the Prime Minister, Tony Blair, over and over again talk about Britain being the beacon for the world. So this is a great example of that. As we get closer, people will start the countdown. We're looking right now at Trafalgar Square, traditionally the British party zone on New Year's Eve. They were going to freeze Trafalgar Square and make it into a giant skating rink for the evening, but that proved too difficult and too expensive. Nonetheless, you can see that people are crowding into Trafalgar Square, as they also are along the banks of the river. Great street parties have been held in London along the banks of the River Thames, and the people there obviously hope that their patience will pay off, because this is the site of what has been billed as the greatest pyrotechnics of the world's Millennium celebrations. There will be what is known as a river of fire, the illusion of a fire wall racing up the Thames at the speed of sound. There will also be a 15-minute Millennium spectacular fireworks. Let's listen as we head into the countdown.
doubt that this is the largest fireworks demonstration you have ever seen. Let us assure you that this, in fact, is the case. In fact, they claim that this is such an elaborate demonstration of the pyrotechnic power of the British that you would be able to see this from space if you had been in space to watch all this. It's 39 tons of fireworks, all operated by remote control, and you could see on the River Thames, they put them out on the barges for safety and then lit them by remote control.
There were 16 barges up and down the Thames and a light show, as you can still see remnants of that. And I actually believe that you might have been able to see this from space.
Christian, we're looking at the River Thames and know that you are just down the way a bit from where the location is of the beacon.
It is extraordinary to think that over the past 24 hours, we've watched for the first time in the history of our planet, all peoples of the world, different nationalities, different cultures, different religions, celebrate the same event.
This is Larry King in Los Angeles. It's midnight, approaching in the Western Hemisphere, and the first city to get it, major city, is Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, Copacabana Beach. There is the scene. It's summer in Brazil, and it's 5 seconds to go. Let's watch together. "2000 has arrived in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and in the Western Hemisphere. And there you see the celebration in one of the world's more beautiful cities. What a day this has been. CNN brilliantly, I think, has covered this. We're going to check in momentarily with Charles Ziwi, who is on the scene in Rio de Janeiro. And there's the fireworks going off at Copacabana Beach. Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, 2000 has arrived. Charles Ziwi, where are you and what's happening?
Larry, I'm standing in the surf here on the Copacabana Beach, and the third millennium, Larry, has arrived in the Americas. This is the scene. Fireworks overhead, beautiful fireworks in the colors of the Brazilian flag of yellow and green. This is supposed to go on for about 18 minutes before it finally finishes in a 20,000 shell explosion of gold and silver and white shells. 2 million, perhaps as many as 2 million people are on the beach here. They're saying it could be 3 million, 5 million overall in Brazil on beaches here, tourists, Brazilians alike. They call them cariocas. This is a country that is celebrating what it hopes will be a new birth of its economy in the new millennium. Brazil has long been considered a third world country, but the president of Brazil told me today he hopes this New Year's marks the end of that this country will go and become a modern country. This is still a country, though, where most of the people earn only 165 reals a month. That's about the equivalent of 75 US dollars. So here's the scene. This party is expected to go on all night long. Larry?
Thanks, Charles. There's the scene in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. That is, as he said, it's expected to go on all night long. It is summer there, isn't it, Charles?
It is summer, and what you're watching right now, Eric, this is a tribute that most Brazilians who are wearing white down here on the beach engage in. They are throwing waters, this woman dousing herself with champagne. This is in a tribute to La Manja. She is a mythical god of the sea. This is a custom that is a couple of hundred years ago, perhaps older here in Brazil. It is meant to bring good luck and health and happiness in the new year. This is a combination of Carnival and New Year's and the biggest party you've ever seen all rolled into one here. It's summertime. People have been enjoying the beach. No Y2K worries here. People have been more intent on having one heck of a party, and you can see they're doing that right now.
One other thing, Charles, why the white? Why is everyone in white?
It has to do with tradition, Larry. They're called cariocas, which is an Indian term that means white hut. When the Portuguese first discovered Brazil and settled Brazil 500 years ago, and this, by the way, is the 500th birthday of Brazil, they built white huts on the beach. It's an Indian term that got adopted here. That's why they're wearing white tonight. The officials here have been organizing this celebration, have said that they expect at least 3 million people along Copacabana Beach, was about 2 miles long, shaped in a crescent here in Rio, and another 2, maybe 3 million on other beaches in Brazil.
Thanks, Charles. Charles Ziwi on the scene Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. It's the year 2000 in the Western Hemisphere.
In the two big cities we are focusing on at this hour, New York City and Washington, D.C., two of CNN's very finest, Fred Hickman and Wolf Blitzer. And we're setting you two up. We want you two to tell us why your city has the biggest celebration.
Well, considering this is New York, Wolf, I think I should go first.
All right, go ahead, Fred.
I mean, you know, you look around, we have 2 million people here. Looking back behind me toward the south, past One Times Square, all the way back to 34th Street, and then back north, all the way down to 59th, 6th Avenue, 8th Avenue. It is wall-to-wall people down here, and they're well-behaved. They're having a great time. And if that's not enough for you, I've got the great balloons going on down here. I've got 160 puppets going. I have 24 different Broadway shows that have gone on today. Pyrotechnics out the wazoo when midnight hits. I got a crystal ball up on top. And if that's not enough, I got 7,000 gallons of coffee donated by Timothy's Delicatessen all ready to go. Now, how can you top that?
Well, Fred, I got Muhammad Ali and Elizabeth Taylor here, in addition to the President of the United States and the First Lady. But we have tens of thousands of people who have simply packed around. It's unbelievable. You know, when I came here at around 5 this afternoon, and it was not very crowded. But with every 15 minutes, this place simply got going. It's been packed. And as you can see and as you can hear, the excitement is only just beginning, because in a little while, what we're going to see behind the Lincoln Memorial is a sound and light show and fireworks that will make that little crystal ball in New York City, which we see every year, which is no big deal. It comes down and it's over with. People kiss and hug in Times Square, and that's about it. What you're going to see here in the nation's capital is a fireworks display that has never been seen before. In fact, you'll see stuff going down this reflecting pool, the reflecting pool from the Lincoln Memorial all the way down to the Washington Monument. It's not only going to stop there, it's going to go up to the top of the Washington Monument. You'll see something that the nation's capital has never seen. Certainly New York City has never seen anything like this before. Fred, what do you got to top that?
Well, let me go back to my little crystal ball thing. I'm a little hurt by that. You know, this crystal ball has never been seen before. Waterford crystal, it is hand-carved. It will only be seen this one particular time. It weighs 1,070 pounds. It has 504 individually cut crystals, and it's a beautiful thing. But, you know, if I'm not convincing you, let me go down to my colleague, Gary Tuckman, who's down in the crowd down here. He's down with my 2 million friends, and he's going to tell you what's going on as we close it on midnight in New York. Gary?
Fred, I got to tell you, it helps to be 6'1" in this situation so you can see me, but I wish I was 6'5", it would be easier. A lot of very happy people right now. I am standing in the midst of what may be 2 million people, the largest gathering ever in Times Square, New Year's history. They've been doing this since 1904, and the turnout's incredible. Amazingly, a very small percentage of these people are New Yorkers. These people are from all over the world. Like this guy, he's from Ecuador. You having a good time? Yeah, sure. It's the best place to be.
Washington, D.C., New York City, and the countdown on the East Coast is underway. A matter of seconds, less than 45 seconds now, as we go down to approaching 30 seconds before the new millennium on the East Coast of the United States.
The fabled ball, now a Waterford crystal creation, is about to drop in Times Square. We will be there. Japan did not long ago. And what will you be doing at midnight on New Year's Eve? 62% said kissing someone.
This is how it looks outside, inside Penn Station. Let's go back to Frank Buckley.
Bernie, we are at Penn Station right now. This is some of the crowd that is heading back from Times Square. That's some of the people who are trains will be running here, but some of them have been paused. Excuse me. I was hoping to talk to some of the people here to ask them about their hopes on New Year's Eve. Tell me your name again. Tell me, did you get down to Times Square tonight?
How did I get down? Is that what you said?
Did you get to Times Square tonight?
No, I was unfortunate to get to Times Square, but I did enjoy seeing the ball drop, which was very interesting because I've never seen that in real life. I've always had to see it on TV, but it was awesome. I loved it. It was beautiful.
Here, the McCormick Place Convention Center, however, considerably warmer, and they are dancing it away. The Chicago 2000 International Millennium Celebration is on in full swing. Outside, there will be big-time fireworks in about a half an hour, and inside, you know, you spent a lot of money and time at CNN today talking to people all around the world. Well, the fact is, all you had to do was come to Chicago because it's a veritable United Nations of people that have been brought here, 2 people from each country in the known world. And I have a group of them with me, and I'd like to first just ask you, what is your name and where are you from?
My name is Berit Kristoffersen. I came from Norway.
And you, sir?
Hans. I'm from Norway. Hi, I'm Craig from Scotland.
Adenike Badejo from Nigeria.
I'm doing a Badejo from Nigeria. Azim Nikmous from Morocco, Casablanca.
In your upper left-hand corner, the Windy City, the largest fireworks display in Chicago's history, about to get underway. We are at 1 minute and 8 seconds and counting.
People in Granbury, Texas are poised in the town square.
We are here in Granbury, Texas. What you're looking at is the courthouse, which really is the centrifugal force of this town, around which all of the New Year's Eve activities have gathered. Right now, they're listening to the tones of Larry Joe Taylor, a Texas-bred country western singer. He is the one that is going to lead the countdown to New Year's here in this small town of about 6,000.
Let's show Granbury something they've never seen before. The good folks at CNN, let's show it around the world.
And now we want to go to
Mexico City. Our bureau chief there, Harris Whitbeck.
And I know that earlier you and Judy were talking about couples getting engaged and pregnant women out there celebrating the Millennium. I can't offer you that, but I can offer you a square full of people wearing red underwear. And let me try to explain that to you. The tradition here in Mexico says that if you're wearing red undergarments as the new year arrives, that it will ensure a lot of prosperity, a lot of love, and a lot of good luck in the new year. So I can assure you that at least some of those 200,000 people who are out there are wearing bright red underwear tonight.
As we leave you during this segment, this was the Millennium in Acapulco, to the south and on the Pacific coast of Mexico. It is 2 minutes and 30 seconds to midnight Pacific Standard Time. The Millennium Sweep returns to the Pacific as CNN tracks 2000 to the west coast of North America. In the upper left-hand corner of your screen, in the City of Angels, Los Angeles is counting down.
And in the upper right-hand corner, Las Vegas, the biggest party in town, we're told, a downtown light show and concert covering 4 city blocks.
And from Nob Hill to the waterfront, this is San Francisco.
And finally, Vancouver, the westernmost big city in our neighbor to the north, Canada. First night, a family-oriented, we are told, alcohol-free event.
Everyone counting backwards now as the new millennium hits the western United States and Canada.
40 seconds to go until these 4 great cities in the rest of the Pacific time zone, and that includes the states of Washington, Seattle, the state of Oregon, California, and we're looking here at Nevada, and the westernmost portion of Canada. Countdown. Maybe we should be quiet and listen to what's going on. San Francisco.
What's the mood there in Las Vegas?
Well, in Las Vegas, they say it's a city of great hedonism. It's just sheer exuberance here. One of the newest hotels in Las Vegas is the Terrace, and the Eiffel Tower here sort of simulated a giant champagne bottle that was being uncorked for all the world to see. The top of it was spouting all sorts of sparks and confetti and fireworks. There are a lot of people right now in Las Vegas who are, for lack of a better term, partying on the street. But there's an awful lot of people indoors, some 1,300 of them, in fact, indoors watching Barbra Streisand right now, and a myriad of other concerts. So it's sort of a dual-pronged party here with a lot of the revelers out there having a good time and many other people taking in their favorite artists, a lot of huge acts. We talked about Barbra Streisand and Carlos Santana, and Bette Midler, with her trademark voice, ushered in the new year with her own version of New Year's merriment. The divine Miss M, wishing everyone a very happy new millennium.
You're now looking at live pictures of millennial celebrations underway in Hawaii. As millions have done before them, Hawaiians are now ringing in the year 2000.
Hello and welcome from the CNN Center in Atlanta. I'm Colleen McKenzie.
And I'm Leon Harris. We're just getting buckled up and sitting in here now. And we thank you for joining us as we continue our coverage of Millennium celebrations around the world.
And we want to take you now to live shots of Hawaii. And there you see the fireworks going off there in a display in Honolulu's harbor.
These fireworks are being launched actually from a barge out there somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. You can see where they're being launched at from out there. It's off the beach there. Actually, it's quite a beautiful shot.
One of the downtown hotels is also hosting a Hawaii-style welcome, what they describe as a Hawaii-style welcome. There's lots of music and dance from Hawaiian performers.
Now it's the dawn of a new year, a new century, and a new millennium. And there's only one thing left to say. Fortunately, there's a way to say it in every language of the world.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Tinggal jakąś.
Nowym Godem всех. Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. كل عام وأنتم بخير. Happy New Year. Buon anno, Happy New Year.
It's my first time celebrating a new millennium.